It's about to get crazy. It's about to go down. It's about to get crazy. It's gonna be loud. This is our house. We do what we wanna. We'll blow the roof up. Everybody's coming. It's about to get crazy. It's about to go down. It's about to go down.
All right, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. Today, I'm going to go over the gear that I used on the moose hunt in British Columbia. I figure, it's always good. Each hunt's a little different. There's a lot of duplicate stuff. I'll try not to cover that much. But I learn a lot each time I go out. My system changes as I learn and as I grow and as I test gear and figure out what works and what does not work. So I'm just going to kind of run down the gear that I used, and I'll try to be as quick as I can, hit everything, and hopefully this helps other late season hunters. So let's describe the conditions. We went to British Columbia. We actually landed in the Yukon, spent a day in the Yukon territory, drove a long way across the border, was back in British Columbia, and then we flew by float plane into some remote country, very remote, in the Cassiar Mountains. And the first day we got there, there was snow. It was kind of blizzarding, cold, obviously below freezing, and things got wet real quick as well because it was hovering at that temperature where it sticks, the snow sticks, but then doesn't stick, and then throughout the trip there was a couple of clear nights where it was really cold. We got quite a bit of snow. The mornings were really cold when the skies were clear. So it was right around that, somewhere around 20 to 25 degrees up to, 40 degrees, 50 in the afternoon. There was a couple of days where in the heat of the afternoon in the sun, you could walk around in a t-shirt maybe for a couple of days. But for the most part, it was dang cold. It got real cold. So that sets the picture, okay, for the gear. And this was a, backcountry remote hunt. But this wasn't a backpacking hunt. This was a horseback hunt. We had a base camp, cabins or wall tents with fireplaces or stoves in each of them. So I'm going to go over what I brought, why I brought it, what worked and what didn't work. First off, I brought these crispy Nevada boots. People who know me know I love this boot, this exact boot, Crispy US. This is my second pair. The first pair, I put a couple thousand miles on them. These are the Crispy Legends. They're insulated. I don't remember how many grams. I think it's 400, maybe 200. I can't remember, but they're insulated. But to me, they're kind of a great all-around boot. Even when it's hot, I can roll with these. When it's cold, I can roll with them. They just have enough insulation that they're still warm. Super comfortable. And I like leather. I like how it conforms to my foot. I like how comfortable they get over time. Leather has some drawbacks. Leather can soak up a lot of water if you don't treat the leather. And that is a mistake that I made for this trip. I have been conditioning the leather because my first pair of boots, I did not put an ounce of anything on them to take care of them in any way. And the leather would soak up water. They'd dry out. But after 2,000 miles, I'd say they were still dang comfortable, even though I didn't do anything to take care of them. This pair of boots, I've gone through the effort of really conditioning the leather and taking care of the leather to see how they handle in comparison to the boots that I just abused. And so far, I really like it's just the Crispy boot conditioning product that they come with. I really like the treatment. I put it on the boot, and really the leather just doesn't soak up water. And I used it throughout this season so far, August, September. Lots of miles put on them, lots of terrain, lots of swampy, wet crap. Boots never leak. One thing I noticed on this trip was that the leather finally got wet. I didn't bring any conditioning material. I hunted in them a month. I didn't condition the leather at all. The leather then took on a lot of moisture on this BC hunt. Had I got them treated just before I left, I think I'd have been set. But instead, I didn't do that, and the leather soaked up a lot of water, like as it normally would, and that doesn't bother me because your boots get wet anyway. But what happened was my feet were dry and warm inside the boot the day before. We hiked through some water and a little creek bed and things like that in the snow. Come back to camp, and I just took my boots off and put them under my cot. I didn't bother putting them by the fireplace or anything like that. The leather was thoroughly saturated with moisture, but like I said, the boot's warm and dry. The next day, it was clear skies. Next day we got up and it was hand and face biting cold, like cold. So that coldness was a little brutal. And we jumped on horses. So we're not hiking. We're not walking. We're just sitting, our foot's in the stirrups, and literally the water in the leather froze and the boot was hard as a rock. And it felt like I had ice boots on my feet. And so even though they were insulated, the water conducted quite a bit of chill especially once it froze. And then it was a little hard, stiff to get them to break loose. And if we hiked around, my feet got warm. I think definitely treating the leather is paramount, especially on a hunt like this, to keep the boots, keep the leather from soaking up all that liquid and to keep your foot warm. John Barklow came, and I think Jay Beyer had the same boots, and they bought Crispy's. I don't know what they're called, but it's a new boot. It's a boot that has more insulation than this. It's the next level up. It's the most insulated boot that Crispy makes. They came on the hunt with that boot, and I'll learn more about it. And about 5 days into the hunt, I asked Barklow, do your feet get cold? Like, how are you doing? Because my feet would get a little cold riding on the horses. Just, you're not walking, you're sitting still. And like I said, the boot would freeze. And he's like, honestly, on all the hunts I've ever been on, I can honestly say that I haven't thought about my feet once. So his set of boots being more insulated, it looks a lot like this boot, almost the same, only that next level of insulation. It might have a stiffer sole. I don't know. I need to learn more about it. But I would say if I were to do that hunt again, I would step up to that boot. I would bring a boot that has more insulation. And so I think that's applicable to any cold weather hunt, anytime you're dealing with below 30-degree temperatures. This boot worked fine last year on like 3 or 4 late season hunts where I was backpacking, but I was hiking quite a bit. And I'd move throughout the day. If I was on a hunt where maybe I'm on a horse or I'm on a UTV or we're not covering as much ground on foot and not pumping as much blood through the system, I could see how, your feet get cold in this. And my feet got cold after we hiked a mountain and then we'd sit for 4 hours in the snow last year in Colorado. My feet would get a little cold in these boots, but it wouldn't last very long. And then we'd hike down. But I am anxious now to try a more insulated boot, so that when I do stop after that hiking, my feet stay warm. I want to try that out because Keith and I, it's funny, we rode horses and we had really cold feet. Keith wore the Brickstall, which is, I believe, an uninsulated boot, or it has less insulation than this. His feet were significantly colder than mine. Boots perform great, waterproof and so on, but the insulation level was lower. His feet got cold. We both were on horses, pretty short stirrups, riding in the saddle a lot of hours, and our toes are numb. Like, I can't feel my toes. I've been home a week and my toes still are they're starting to come back a little bit, talked to a few other people, and they're saying the compression from riding in on a horse that many hours, with even the cold from the circulation, it can impact the feeling in your toes. It takes like 4 to 6 weeks to come back. It's probably not a good thing, but anyway, that happened. So I'm anxious to try that next level up. So that's that on the Crispy boots. Still bomb proof, absolutely bomb proof. Kept my feet absolutely perfectly warm, never leaked. I just love that boot. I can rely on it. Okay. On another note, there was some people in camp who their feet got wet. Let's just continue on that same note of how I wore those boots, because there's a system to it. Once your boots get wet on the inside, they're really hard to dry out. Really hard, especially if they're leather, in my opinion. You almost need a Pete's boot dryer or something like that to get the heat inside the boot. You can dry out the outside of your boot, putting it by a stove and so on, but sometimes getting it to dry out inside is a major challenge. And once your feet are wet inside, you're miserable the whole time. I've heard of people stuffing newspaper or tissue in there or something to sort of pull out the moisture. But if it's at all possible, what I've seen recently is they'll get those Cabela's or Pete's boot dryers. If you have a generator, which we did at these cabins, you plug in that boot dryer, and if your boots do somehow get wet inside, you can get them to dry out. And then recently I saw that they have the Pete's boot dryers that are run on a little green propane canister. So those little canisters can be used to dry your boots. Now, I haven't needed to use a Pete's boot dryer in like 4 years. Basically, since I started using Crispy, my Nevadas have never leaked. Neither have my Summit. And I'm pretty careful. The only time this year my boots got a little wet inside because I wore the Sitka Ascent pants, walked through super wet country, and then the water got on my socks, which were pulled up to my knees to stay warm. And then my socks got soaked, and they just wicked the moisture down into the boot from the top. So that's the system I was going to talk about. How do I wear my boots so that they stay dry inside? Because the one place that they can soak up moisture is through the top. They don't leak, but you can still get water in your boot. If you walk into a creek and it's deeper than your boot, which happened to one of the guys, then yeah, you have that risk of water getting in through the top of your boot and going inside. So this is what I do. I like a sock liner. I've talked about it before. These are some old. I bought them in 2007, and they're starting to show. I need some new ones. But these are wool sock liners by Smart Wool. I'm going to find some new ones. I actually went and bought a few, but I don't like them yet. I haven't found a pair that I like that are made out of something similar. There's a lot of synthetics. These are just wool, and these little micro wool socks have been awesome. So lately what I've seen are some synthetic versions, and I've tried them and they're not as good, but I live and die by sock liners. And then I like this fiber that's in these Gore socks. Talk to anybody who's ever used them. These are incredible. They don't make them anymore. I think you can find them in a couple of places. Hopefully Sitka picks up the fiber, or someone else does, because whatever these are made out of, they're awesome. So I basically wore this pair of socks for 7 days straight and never washed them. And I think I could wear them basically the whole time. And I cannot get by with that. I have with another sock. So I have some of these other ones, like these Smart Wools and so on. But if I wear them for 3 or 4 days, they're just nasty. So there's something about these socks that are game changer. And I really feel like, it's a system. When you're talking about the boot, you got to talk about the sock too. Now, it was a little cold, so I wore a Smart Wool, just a straight up wool sock over the top of this sock and of this other sock, and just to add a little more warmth. And that really helped my feet stay warmer without the insulation in them. These boots, I think if I had used the boots that Barklow's got, the heavier insulated Crispies, I probably didn't need that extra sock, but definitely that helped. It's the first time I've worn 2 pair of socks, other than the sock liner, in my boots in a long time. So I'll put on the sock liner. I'll put this sock on, and I've said this before. I love wearing socks up to my knees. So I like really long socks because it's like wearing a pair of long underwear. If I get hot, I can just push those socks down to my ankles. But I hate wearing long underwear. I hate wearing them because how do you shed that layer? Like, how do you get rid of it? Well, you got to take your boots off and your socks and your pants, and it's just not a practical layer to take off. So I prefer that I wear socks up to my knees and then just a little bit heavier pant. So I wore the Sitka Timberline pant, which has the reinforced knees and butt, and it's a little thicker pant. It's one of my favorite pairs of pants that Sitka makes. And for this kind of late season, it's awesome. The knees and the butt are both reinforced, like canvasy kind of on those, and they're also waterproof. Like I said, if I get a little warm, I can just slide those socks down to my ankles, and that's more practical to me than taking my pants off, which never happens. So I get stuck in these hot long underwear, and then I just the last thing I want to do is strip down and take them off. So I avoid long underwear as much as I can on my lower body. So Gaiters. So I wore the Sitka Stormfront Gaiters, and the way that I do it, and did this the whole trip, I learned this from John Barklow. Maybe others knew this beforehand, but this is how I like to do it. I put my sock liner on. I put my Gore-Tex long sock on. It goes up to my knee. And then I put my boot on. Put my Timberline pants on. Then I pull out my pants and I put my gaiter on, and I wear my Timberline pant over my gaiters. So my gaiters are not on the outside of my pants. My gaiters are under my pants. I liked it for a couple of reasons. One, I really wear the gaiter in order to keep my socks from getting wet, especially those ones pulled up to my knees as I walk through brush and so on. I don't want any moisture going in through the top of my boot. And so that gaiter covers my sock, covers my boot. And then when I wear my pants over it, as water wicks onto my pant as I'm walking through the brush, and this place is gnarly, my thighs and my knees are soaking up water. And if my pant is under my gaiter, that water just wicks down my pant and goes under my gaiter. And it undermines my gaiter's effectiveness. And it goes under my gaiter, gets on my socks, and wicks down into my boot. Now, if my Timberline pant is over my gaiter, then that moisture just runs over the top of my gaiter. And my socks from the knees down, my my whole system is completely dry. So I noticed a lot of guys out there wearing their gaiter on the outside of their pant. The other thing I noticed was that the gaiters would get thrashed. And for whatever reason, my Timberline pant can take a beating in the brush, can just thrash the pant, and it holds up. But I noticed a lot of the gaiters were getting thrashed by the brush, and maybe it's the material they're made out of, but that material I saw shredding and coming apart a lot faster than my pants do. So I think it serves another purpose, just by observation, that it really protects your gaiter and makes your gaiter last longer. And although your pants are getting hammered, they're built for it better than the gaiter is, it seems. Another issue that I ran into was we were spot and stock moose hunting. I mean, we had no choice because the moose were not coming to calls. They weren't responding. So as you're hitting those trees, you're hitting these little willows and stuff. Gaiters are kind of loud because they're waterproof. They're hard shell. They're there to keep the moisture out. And when people walk through the brush with those gaiters on, you can just hear like walking with rain gear. But when my Timberline pant were on the outside of my gaiters and I walked through brush, it was very easy to be quiet. That would brush your soft Timberline pant and not make a lot of noise. And the cool thing about the Timberline pant, just like any Sitka gear for the most part, is it dries so fast that, you get a little bit wet at night. By morning, they were dry. And because I'm wearing them over my gaiters anyway, I didn't care if they were wet. They got wet in the first 10 minutes I hiked. So my gaiter underneath was bone dry, and then the whole system under the gaiter was dry. So didn't care. So that's my 2 cents on that setup. That's that system. So I did bring a pair of Ascent pants because I like a high level of breathability if I'm hiking. And the Ascent pants don't weigh anything. They're right here. They're just tiny. And they compact. So I brought these, and actually one day we went and hiked a lot, climbed some hills, and did quite a bit of walking. And wearing these was nice because they got wet, but the moisture again wicked on the outside of my gaiter. But they were so breathable. It was refreshing. And so I think on any hunt where I'm going, if I'm going to do extensive hiking, it's nice to have these in my pack. And just because I hate sweating from the waist down profusely, I will probably always just bring these for the heavy hikes and then change into my Timberline if I'm more stationary and not moving as much. It's worth the deal for me. So let's move on. I brought the Kafaru pack, this muskeg. And for those that don't know, this pack is waterproof. I absolutely love it. It's the super lightweight frame. I wasn't sure what I'd think about it, how I'd feel about it. And then, man, I don't know that I can ever go back now that I've used it. Everything stays dry. The whole bag is waterproof. You can see that I've got it cinched down. This is the 7,000 cubic incher. It's the beast, the monster. But, it compacts down. Adam Greentree had the same pack on this hunt, but his is the next size smaller. It was definitely more appropriate for this hunt, but it's really tough for me to forgo space. Like, you never know when you might need it, and you can always compress it. If you have the money, then I think it's great to buy both, or maybe you just never will use the entire breadth of a pack with this many cubic inches. And so for you, it's better to have the smaller version, but I don't know, to each their own. I'm kind of, it's like the Crispy Nevada is an all-around boot. I can get by with it. I don't have to buy more than one. It's perfect for kind of all types of terrain and seasons. Is it the perfect boot? No, it's a little cold in these extreme temperatures. It's a little hot in some of the other temperatures. But if I had to buy one boot, that'd be my boot. Thankfully, I have the Summit for hot weather. I'm going to get these new boots for the really cold stuff. This is the same. If you only have the budget for one pack and one pack only, I would say, man, get the bigger pack and then cinch it down. If you can get more than this, if you can get 2 packs, then yeah, get the smaller size. It would have been much more ideal. I like the Kafaru because modular. The pack frame is incredible. Can carry heavy weight like nobody's business. This pack is cool. It's got like a little pouch for your spotter and things like that in here. You can add your pockets here on the front. But dude, the fact that it's waterproof in this hunt we were on, there were guys that had packs that would get wet, and you had to have your gear inside stuff sacks or dry sacks inside your pack to keep it. And then the pack itself would get heavy because it's saturated with water. I mean, it adds like a couple pounds, or it just feels way heavier. And this was just always dry. The water just shed right off it. It's got these, like, the zippers didn't leak, nothing. So it's pretty sweet having a waterproof backpack. So I also like on this Kafaru, this side zipper right here. So this allows me to have pockets on the front. My Reckoning has a zipper down the center. It prevents me from having pockets like these. So I really like these pocket options because they really help me effectively store my gear. And then, like I said, I can quickly get inside from the side here and kind of grab onto some stuff that I like or that I need to get to quickly, and then I can zip it back up without completely taking my backpack apart. A top loading pack only is just so inconvenient now that I've had access this way. It's hard for me to go back. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the gear out that I brought here out of this pack, and then kind of go through. It stinks like dead animal and stuff. Horses and a week of woo, baby, smell that. So you can see it's waterproof in here. Everything's dry. I'm really, really stoked about this pack. Okay. And then, let's go over, as I said before in the last one, the Peak Designs, camera clip. I use the same camera system that I talked about in the last gear podcast after my elk hunts. Went over that. I'm not going to go over that again. So going over other gear, same bino system. I'm not going to talk about that. You'll have to check out the old podcast for that. These are the Gaiters I was just talking about. These are the Stormfront Gaiter, Sitka. It's the new ones. Totally happy with these. Wearing them the way that I did, they were just super legit. Did the job. They were great. Super comfortable. Effective. Come off each night. Hang them up. They're totally dry. Ready to rock the next day. Kept my sock system dry. Awesome. Okay. Here's the Timberline pant that I was talking about. As you can see, it's got the reinforced knees. Got the reinforced butt. Again, the perfect weight pant for this late season hunt. As these got wet, it just dried real quick. And it's just made out of that kind of material where it can just dry. I like this Sitka belt. It's just a hook. Goes like that. It's simple. I don't have to unthread it. Some of the other brands, they have a similar thing, but you have to thread it in and thread it out. Or they have some big clunky belt buckle. Sitka has one like that. I just like this. It's flat, simple, clean. When I need to take a leak, drop my drawers, I don't have to adjust the belts at all. It just comes undone. Simple. I like it. So those are the Gaiters and the pant. The other thing that I used were these mittens right here. They're the Stormfront mitt, I believe, and they were a game changer. They were so legit, and some of the other guides had them as well. They're just perfect. And so what's cool about them is they have this inner liner that just pulls out, right? Like this. So you have this insulated liner that if it did get wet, it's really easy to dry quickly. And you can pop it out, and then you have the Gore-Tex shell liner here that goes over it. And we use these riding horses for hours. It's just nice to keep your fingers warm. And in mitts, it's a great design for just keeping your, it's simple. You stay totally waterproof. It comes up really high, and there's this drawstring, and I can just pull it like that, and it just tightens way up above the cuff of your rain jacket and whatever else you're wearing. And it just kind of keeps that water nice and out. It might leak past that, but it just doesn't get in there enough. And I used it in the pouring rain. With one hand, you can undo that cinch as easy as that. It's all one-handed operation, and then they pull right off. The only thing that and we talked about this with some of the other guys that were there, The only thing I would like to see with these is I would really like to see, with a mitten, you can't get to your fingers aren't independent. They can't operate independent. But because your fingers are together, your hand just stays so much warmer. And it's nice and comfortable. If you're just writing for hours and holding on to some reins, you don't need your individual fingers, or if you're ponying a horse and you just got your hand out there or whatever, it's really nice just to mitt up your hands. But what happens is when I pull this mitt off, which, I just need to pull it on and off quickly. And when you're trying to put your wet hand inside of fingered gloves, which I'll grab those. These are, I believe, the Stormfront glove. Again, this one doesn't have a liner. It's all just built in one. And these work great. And they're insulated and they're waterproof, totally Gore-Tex. But when your fingers are separated like this, they can get cold in super cold conditions, but you have access to your fingers, which is nice. I recommend on a trip like this that you have both setups. That you have this when you really need to get some work done and ride, and you need those fingers and they're important. But if you're riding a horse for hours or you're just sitting there waiting and glassing, man, I would prefer the mittens over the gloves any day of the week. Once your hand is wet and you're trying to put it inside of a glove, it's hard to get it in there. And then slowly this kind of gets a little moisture. The other thing is I can't pull the liner out of this and dry it quickly and efficiently in the glove. In the mitt, I can just pull it out and dry it just like that. So I like the efficiency of this setup. The only thing that I would like to see is, especially like I'm on horseback, in the olden days when you had mittens, they have like a little tassel that goes around your wrist so that you can just pull your wrist out and then they just hang and you can get work done and you slip them back in the mittens. And I think that these kind of need some kind of attachment. If it goes to your waist, if it goes to your elbow, if it attaches in some way, because I found myself taking them off constantly, get my hands free, do a little task, and then I shove them back in the mitts. It's ideal, but they hit the ground a number of times while I was on horseback. And it happened with our guides a bunch of times, like Tanis and Doran. Tanis had a pair and she lives and dies by these, but they just are easy to lose and drop in the dirt. And so what's really nice is, like I said, if there was some way of attaching them, and that way you could, just drop them real quick, do something, and put them right back on. Anyway, that's a recommendation to Barklow. But this setup's easy to wash, easy to clean, easy to dry out. So I really like that. The gloves, like I said, these Stormfront gloves are a must because sometimes you just need to get work done, and these are bomb-proof. I didn't use them on this trip, and it was a mistake. I left them like an idiot and thought I'd just put these to the test, these mittens, and they're great, like I said, but there were a few times where I needed my fingers in the dark on a horse when I'm ponying one behind me and I needed to reach into something, and you just need your hands you need your fingers while you're doing this stuff. The mittens just don't work. So I ended up going gloveless for an hour or 30 minutes and my hands would freeze when these would have been the perfect solution for that particular use. So I will never go on a cold weather late season hunt without both the mitts and the gloves again. They're worth their weight to me. Hands and keeping them warm and stuff is a game changer too. It's so nice. It makes glassing, all activities, so much more durable. You can endure that cold so much better. So I wore this Apex hoodie pretty much throughout the trip. The weight of this was great. I wore that. I liked it. Slept in it. And then I wore this. This is the Kelvin Light vest. I wore that Loved it. Wore it underneath my setup. And then on the outside of that, I wore the Kelvin Light jacket that has the hoodie. So this system with the Timberline pant, socks up to my knees, this Apex hoodie with the vest and the Kelvin Light jacket pretty much kept me extremely warm and silent. If I got really cold, all I needed to do with this system was add the Stormfront rain gear. And it would block the wind, because there's no wind blocker in this setup if you look at it. There's so much moisture up north and so much rain and snow and brush you're walking through every day that you pretty much are in rain gear all the time. You live in it. Even in the morning you're on horses, you're putting the rain gear on. You're really only taking it off when you go on a stalk, or if it's really hot, which really didn't happen at that time of year. So we pretty much, everyone lives in this Stormfront rain gear. So this is the pant. It unzips up to the hip. You can put it on over your gear, no problem. You just, boots on, everything. You just put it on, take it off. It's super simple. And because these rain pants go over my entire system and not under my gaiters or anything like that, it's like they just come on and off quick, easy. So I pretty much wore them every time we got on horses. They went through, and I've used these a couple years now. I've been on multiple horseback trips with them. They just get thrashed in the brush. I'm kneeling down on them all the time. I'm sitting on the wet ground. I'm walking through the bush. I'm thrashing these. And so far, they're still waterproof, and they're holding up, and there's no holes or rips. So the Sitka Stormfront pant is legit. I know it's expensive, but it's a piece of gear that's hard to live without. So that's the Stormfront pant. And then whenever we got on a moose, there was 2 stalks I got to go, three really, but 2 primary stalks where I got to 50 yards on a moose. And we're talking 50 and 70 yards, 50 yards on a cow both times. We were in their pocket. And we had to stalk through willows and brush that were sometimes chest deep and thick. And then other times they were knee high. And the snow made a lot of noise. So these, walking through the brush, an animal can hear you coming from a mile away. Gaiters brushing on the brush, animal's going to hear you. You're just not going to get inside the bow range very easily unless you've got a storm and wind. But if it's dead silent like it was for us, not even a rustle of wind, it was really important that we shed the pants. And like I said, my Timberline pant on the outside of my gaiters, quiet, could sneak around. Gaiters were pretty darn quiet. Even though you're hiking and moving, they're still pretty darn quiet. So, great system. This is the Stormfront jacket, rain jacket. Again, pretty much I wore that all the time until things got pretty late in the day, or if it was a sunny day, and then it would come off and stick it in my pack. But for the most part, it drizzled constantly, and then it would be sunny, and you're walking through brush. It's brushing up against you're riding through brush on a horse. There's overhanging branches with snow on them, and you're brushing through these spruce trees. And so, again, I've beat the crap out of this jacket, and it's still going strong. It's got these rubber gaiters in the sleeve that are just legit. Keeps water from rolling up in underneath and getting your jacket dirty or wet. Underneath, like my hoodie underneath. Just cinch that down, and moisture just stays out. I wear my other mitt glove over the top. It comes up, 4 or 5 inches, cinches down. Just the whole system keeps you dry. It's legit. It's been put through the test, man. Sitka's done a good job with that. So that was my external. So something that I didn't bring this trip that, like I said, I didn't bring the Stormfront gloves, which I think was a mistake. The other thing I didn't bring was normally on a hunt like this where it's this hardcore, life and death at times, I normally bring another level of puffy that's just for if the apocalypse comes. And I've used the Kafaru Lost Park Parka. I've talked about it many times. It's nice to throw that baby on, and it just blocks the wind. It's like wearing a sleeping bag. It's got a big puffy hoodie. It's got synthetic insulation, so even if it gets wet, you're still dry, or warm rather. It's a life-saving jacket, and it's got reinforced elbows and chest for like belly crawling and so on. Thick canvas. So I like the jacket. It doesn't compress as much as some others, and it's so it's a little bulkier, and you can't move around in it. You literally have to be stationary. It's so warm. So Sitka came out with another jacket that I actually brought, but ended up leaving. And I think that was a mistake too. And this is their new down WS. This is their Adam Yonke told me about this jacket for the late season hunt, towing the line. When they made that film, they used this. It's got gore. It's got wind stopper. It's got a down that's treated, I guess. That, as far as I know, it resists moisture. The exterior. Jay Beyer wore this. They wore it when it snowed and rained and stuff, and it took quite a while to take on moisture. But I didn't bring it because I felt like minimally with the system I've got with the vest, the Kelvin Light vest and the Kelvin Light hoodie combined with a rain jacket, it blocks the wind. I have extra insulation on the core from the Kelvin Light vest, and the Kelvin Light hoodie is just enough to add to that whole system together. Pretty much kept me warm under all the conditions that we had on this hunt. If it had gone maybe 10 or 15 degrees colder or a little more, I could tell, and I was stationary, I could tell it might have been not quite enough. But it never quite got that cold this time of year. I'm very reluctant, though, to leave this apocalypse type down or heavy duty jacket behind. And I did on this particular trip, and if I was backpacking, I probably would leave it. Just like on this trip, I knew we were in a float plane. I cut gear out. So I've not actually put this to the test, but I was talking to the guys that brought it, and they were glad they brought it. For me, I don't know that on this trip I would have actually taken it out of the backpack. I think I could have incorporated it, but it would have been a little bit redundant in my system and in what I brought. And I just didn't want to bring any piece of kit that I wasn't going to use a lot. And so this turned out to be something I didn't quite need, but another week in that area, and I would bring this. I mean, it was right at the edge of whether it was too cold or not. So, I'm still going to put that through some tests. I have some late season hunts that are going to be far colder than what we just did. And we'll see how that goes. But I know some of the other guys brought it and they loved it. I'm sure they were dang warm in it. Like I said, though, for me, I think it felt a little redundant, given how I like to layer. I much prefer multiple layers that are lighter weight. I feel like it's more versatile than one massive layer that I'm kind of stuck with, because I'm a sweater. I get hot. When I exert energy, my body heat raises a lot. And when I sit still, my body temperature drops a lot. So layers are a big deal to me. Some guys, like Snyder, he gets really cold and exertion doesn't seem to increase his body temperature that much. There were hills that we hiked where he would wear his puffy layer tight to the top and wouldn't be sweating, and I would be in a t-shirt and sweating. But as soon as we stopped, I needed to put layers back on. So I just prefer multiple lighter layers that equal a certain level of warmth because it's more versatile. So anyway, that's pretty much it for the clothes. This is the last piece right here. I just wear this synthetic Sitka t-shirt kind of underneath everything, underneath the hoodie and so on, and wear that the whole time. Didn't really smell. I was good. Headwear. So I have an assortment of hats here. A lot of times, you'll see me in a Mountain Ops hat. The one I've got on, I've talked about it before. It's more of a fitness hat. It's got a sweatband headliner. It's comfortable. It's more of a performance hat than just a regular hat. But it's still not this. So this is the Sitka ball cap. The thing is if the brow soaks up a lot of moisture, it doesn't wick up into the hat much. Where with a hat like this and with the thickness of the material that's inside, this brim gets rained on and that moisture can wick up and the whole hat can get wet and stay cold. Where this is just made out of a more technical performance material. And so this hat's nice. For me, I like to wear in these conditions, I like to wear some kind of beanie. I'm bald. My head's cold. Gets cold. I like to wear a beanie, but I hate wearing a beanie in wet, rainy conditions without a ball cap. And that's because of the rain jacket hoodie. I like visibility. I can't stand it when I put a hoodie on, a rain jacket hood, and I turn my head and the hood itself is blocking my view. When you wear a ball cap underneath your rain jacket hood, it basically just keeps your hood lined up, and as you turn and look and move your head, you can see very easily. So the brim will get rained on and get wet, but it never gets up into my head, especially with a ball cap like this. This cap feels good, and then I'll wear a beanie over the top of it. Early season, I wore this merino beanie over my hat. It was just right. This hunt, I didn't wear it at all. It was too cold. This hat wasn't warm enough. So I have two hats here that I wore. I have this windstopper hat, this Gore windstopper hat, Sitka hat, and it blocks the wind. It's very warm. It's pretty bomb-proof. It dries pretty quickly and easily. I can wear that over the top of this ball cap with a rain jacket over it, and it's very, very warm. The problem I have with it is whenever you have windstopper inside of a beanie and it covers your ears, I can't hear. And you'd be surprised how much a windstopper jacket gets in the way of hearing. It's got to keep that wind out, but it also keeps the sound out. And I hate having my ears covered. I know I like it because, it's comfy and warm, but I don't like not being able to hear my surroundings. I don't like not being able to hear an elk bugle or a moose call or a wolf howl, or a grizzly bear sneaking up on me. So that's where this beanie comes into play. I'm not a big fan of how it looks maybe, but it's functional. And this beanie right here, I don't know what it's made out of. Looks like it's wool, 50% wool, 50% acrylic. The lining is polyester. This beanie over the top of the hat, it doesn't impede my hearing at all. It's warm, and the wind cuts right through it, but it's so thick it's still warm. that pretty much I wear this and I can cover my ears and it doesn't impede my hearing at all. I don't need to really roll it up so I can hear. Where this Windstopper beanie, I do. And it's just a pet peeve of mine. I don't like not being able to hear. So that's the head gear for me. And then headlamp, same headlamp. This Black Diamond gives me a red light, green light, white light. I can dim it. Same set of batteries, lasts the whole 14 days. Used it extensively. I did notice that my bright red light worked great on horseback. The white light tend to make the horses seem to stumble a little bit and get blinded a little bit. And they say that ungulates, like deer and elk, they can't see red light. And I've done it where I've hiked right past them and they didn't even look at the light or see it really. Where you turn on a white light and they start running around. So there's some truth in that. I don't know what with horses. Maybe someone can write in and tell me. But anyway, this headlamp has been bomb-proof. I've had it 3 years now. Beat the crap out of it. I brought this Petzl little emergency light. It's lightweight, doesn't weigh a thing. It's got a little LED white light and then some red. It's just my backup lamp. It's simple. Goes inside this little container here. Keeps it waterproof, protected. But yeah, this little headlamp. I actually broke it out on the trip and used it a little bit. I brought the Steripin. I didn't need it up there. The water's just pristine. We can drink right out of every creek. So didn't really need it on this trip, but most of the time I'll bring it and I'll run it on, especially on water that's pristine like that. It's nice to just scoop it right out of an icy creek. And if you are at all sketched out by it, just a couple of minutes with the Steripin and you can just drink that healthy water. I love this Leupold lens cloth. I feel like this is a game changer. I have like 3 or 4 different lens cloths in different pockets that stay dry on a hunt like this when you're running a camera or a spotter, rifle, you name it, binos. You need plenty of lens cloth because it fogs up, gets wet. Toiletry kit's the same. Brought that. Right here I have an emergency kit. So this emergency kit's the same as what I mentioned before. I'm not going to go over it again. Check out that most recent podcast on gear. You kind of get the rundown. But I did break into the medical kit this time. I've had it with me like 3 years, never had to use it. But Doran cut his knee open pretty deep with like a Havalon knife, and that blade put a big hole in his leg. Broke that thing open, had all the supplies I needed, some antiseptic, we cleaned up the blood around the wound, and then antibiotic ointment, butterfly bandages, and so on. The one thing I would like to have in the kit that I didn't have is I like to use super glue. Big fan of super glue. I've used it on big cuts. You can super glue those cuts that you normally stitch together, and then you can throw a butterfly bandage on top of it, and it seems to heal really well, very quickly. Sometimes the airline has gotten on my case about bringing super glue on the plane. I don't know what the rules are exactly, but I took it out the last time because it was on a carry-on, and so I don't know about a check bag. But anyway, I like to use super glue. I did not bring this. This is the Flash rain jacket. I didn't even bother because it's just such heavy-duty rain there. I brought the Stormfront. Binos. I brought 10 power Leupold Santiam binos, and then but I lived and died by these, and I've said this before, by these 15 power Leupold binos. These 15 power binos are I'm tempted just to wear them around my chest for all my hunts from now on. I mean, they're a little bigger and heavier than a 10 power. And honestly, when I'm in close range on a stock, I like having the 10 power. I can pull them out, look through brush 50 yards in front of me and see if I can pick out an antler tip or something like that. And these 15s would be probably just too powerful for that. But outside an actual stock, I would say I've been using these 15s for 99% of all my glassing, and I see so much more game with these 15 powered binos than I do anything else. And these particular binos from Leupold, I just love. They're just clear and crisp and bright, and I just love them. So in handheld, they work really well. And then you throw them on a tripod, which we did, and it was tough to beat. So I just, I'm debating whether I bring my 10s or not. I'm about ready to go full retard on the 15s. Oh, Garmin InReach. We brought that. Everybody in camp, all the guides, all the people at Dustin's outfit, Dustin Rowe was who we hunted with, BC or backcountry BC and beyond. We could communicate with one another throughout the hunt, text each other. You can text right through the device, or you can text through your phone. Man, this thing, you can get a hold of anybody anywhere on the planet with it. There's no such thing as I don't have service. It's got GPS in it. You can get a GPS map. You can see when someone sends you a message. You can see right where they're standing when they send you the message. It's an amazing tool. You pay a certain amount per month for the service, just like you would a cell phone plan. And then you got everything you need. Someday I hope they come out with a touch screen and it works more like your phone, so you don't really need your phone. You can just, but right now it kind of sucks because you have to like toggle through the keys to put in your message, and it just takes a long time. And so you end up using your phone to interface with this. Now, Adam Greentree, a few other people, they brought the Mini. The Mini, had, and I don't know if this is just a freak or if this is standard, but the Mini had trouble picking up signal and sending signal as quickly as this did. I could turn this on, send my messages, get back, and some of the time the Mini would take like 10 or 20 minutes to send the same message. The other thing that I noticed between this and the Mini was, man, if your cell phone's gonna die, and then you're left with this has a much easier user interface than the Mini. You kind of need a cell phone to make the Mini work. I think I'm going to stick to the bigger version pretty much for mostly what I do. I'll play around with the Mini just so I can be informed on it and speak to it more fully. But my initial impression, and from what I'm gathering from other people, the Mini is great for like a stateside hunt probably, where it's not as critical. But if I'm going up north, or I'm going on a mountain, I'm sheep hunting, if I'm going into dangerous territory, if all things fail, I think I'm going, the battery I think lasts longer. I think I'm going to go with this baby. So Adam Greentree brought a Yeti bottle, an insulated Yeti bottle on this trip, where I brought this just a regular Nalgene because it's just lighter and doesn't weigh anything. And I knew this going into it, but was like, don't care. It would probably be, the temperatures would probably be balanced enough that I'm okay. But my water froze in these bottles a couple of times, and then I couldn't drink my water. Adam, on the other hand, could fill his Yeti with, hot fluid, soup or something, and sip on it throughout the day. And I was extremely jealous, and especially on a horseback hunt, and I'm not actually backpacking or carrying the load. Man, I really wished I had an insulated thermos. I was jealous of Adam's the whole time. So in the past, what I've done is I've brought a Camelback insulated water bladder for cold weather, and I fill that thing up with water. Of course, you can't fill it up with super hot liquid, but just water, and it'll stay. It won't melt. It won't freeze in my pack when it's insulated. It comes with a little insulated bag. When you drink out of the hose, you have to blow back through the hose till you hear bubbles popping in there, so that you don't have water in the line before you shut off the valve. That way you don't ever freeze the line. And so I've done that in the past. So you just fill that thing up in the morning with water, and then it'll keep from freezing or sweating in your backpack the whole time because of the insulation around the bladder. If I'm day hiking in uphills, or if I'm hunting in some really cold conditions, I'm actually leaning toward to bringing in thermos because of the joy of having hot liquid in that it's nice. So I'm thinking about maybe even getting a lighter bottle so it's half this, not quite this big of a thermos. I don't know what the weight difference is. I'd be curious to just weigh the two, see what kind of load I'm carrying. But man, this Yeti thermos is tempting. I think I'm going to bring it on this hunt I go on with lampers in the backcountry. As foolish as that sounds, my system's super light, and to have this luxury item in there might be worth it, especially since this time of year, I really like the Hot Ignite. I love that apple cider Hot Ignite that Mountain Ops has got. I also liked the charged mocha. Smells like coffee, tastes like coffee, and it tastes like chocolate. I like all of it. So having that in a mug like this when I'm out hunting just to sip on, it's so nice. And if you're sitting in glassing for hours and hours on a slope, the other option is, just to bring a light, which a lot of guys did on this trip. They just brought like a Yeti mug, and it's a small mug, and you can backpack. Bring that as like your food and drink mug. It's insulated. So if you've got your backpack stove, rather than bringing this full thermos, you could just bring like the smaller mug or even one like this tumbler. And then, you can boil your water, mix up your drink while you're sitting on a hill and glassing a ravine or something, trying to find elk during your late season rifle hunt. And then you can shed a little weight. I haven't figured it out. I'm going to weigh my system and see where I'm at, but it would be nice to just fill my water bottle up as I'm walking by a stream and then know it's not going to freeze, 3 hours later. So I don't know. It's just food for thought. I haven't figured out that system, but on the hunt on this past hunt, I'd bring this thermos all day long. It was a mistake to leave it. I didn't carry the weight. The horse did. And this is really incremental for the horse. He don't care. So I would have brought that for sure. Another piece of gear that we brought that turned out to be legit are these Yeti Pangas. So they were great at the airport. We checked them as baggage, they're completely waterproof. They're airtight. Like this thing right here, I've zippered it shut, and you can see the air is trapped in there. As soon as I break that seal, you can see all that air comes out, right? The thing is totally waterproof, keeps things protected. The zipper has been amazing. You wax it to take care of it, and I'm very good about that. And so far, I'm in love with this. And then we could, toss it in the back of an airplane, get it on the ground, toss it in the snow, keeps all your stuff like safe and secure. It's durable. And then what was really great about it was we just threw it on the horse's back as a top pack. So we all had a little extra gear. We had what we carried in our backpacks, but then we all had like a Panga. I had the 50. Adam had the 100 because Adam is overkill on everything. Just kidding, Adam. This was the Panga. I think this is a Panga 100. They have a 75. Again, put all my gear in here, chuck it on the plane, and then when we were there, we could throw it on a horse's back between the two pack boxes and cinch her down, and it worked awesome. Garmin Rhinos. I brought these, didn't use them. We ended up using the Garmin InReach for mostly everything. There was a couple of stocks where it would have been great to have the radios and to be able to say the moose is 50 yards from you. You're right on top of it. That would have been a handy note to have at the time. Did not get that message because we did not bring the radios. But other than kind of walking someone in on a stock, which some people don't like doing that. Some people don't care whether it's legal or illegal. In certain states, which it is. Outside of that, it's kind of heavy. It's a GPS unit, yes, but man, if I've got the InReach, it's a GPS unit as well. It's serviceable. It gets the job done. I don't know that it makes sense to bring the Rhino, but man, if you're going to use radios, I love these things for the use of a radio. Outside of that, I don't know. I don't know that it really helps to have it or that it's worth carrying on a backpack hunt. But I will definitely use it on day hunts and so on. I can track where my buddies are at, communicate. You can do that on the Garmin InReach as well. It's just more clunky, and it's all texting. There's no talking through it. So depends on the use. So didn't use them in that backcountry hunt. And then let's go into the bow. Before I do that, I'll do this. Again, the sleep system, same thing I used before. This is Thermarest Neo Air, shaped like the Mummy. It's perfect height for me. Been using that forever now. It's lightweight, simple, bomb-proof. And then this is the Kifaru Slick Bag. It's 0 degree. And I'm glad I had the 0. Keith had a 20 degree one. I'm a cold sleeper. Like I said, when I'm not moving, my heart rate drops super low. I don't pump a lot of blood, and I get cold when I sit still. And the 0 bag is bomb-proof. So that's how it is for me. Then for the bow setup's the same. One thing I want to talk about a little bit is the bow sling. This Sitka bow sling is seriously awesome. It kept my cams and my string protected as we're going through brush. I can sling it over my shoulder, beat the crap out of it. I really like how the sling pops out here, and it has a little pocket here where I can cover my sight. It has another cover down here that covers the fletchings and the nocks on my arrows, so they're protected as well. And it's a pretty bomber setup. It's smart. It's forward thinking. It's cool. Barklow kind of came up with, I assume Barklow came up with the design. Smart dude. Because these pins on these sights are so vulnerable. It's very easy to just smash one of these fiber optic pins or something with a branch that goes through it or whatever. And having this little pouch be able to cover it just adds that much more protection. It's built into the bow sling, so it's just there all the time. You can tuck it away if you don't want it there and you're just going for a quick, easy grab. Arrows, like I said, you can sit here and they just go on here. I like the tight spot quiver. Been using it a long time. It's low profile. You can adjust the tightness back here, and I have the Valkyrie system arrows with the micro diameter shafts. These are Black Eagle X Impact. You can see right here. They're the X Impact arrows. A little bit of crap from the hunt. This is the wax that's on the outside, the oil that I oil these broadheads with to keep them from rusting or getting dull. These arrows are inside the quiver like so, and then here's the little pouch that comes with the bow sling, covers up those arrows, keeps snow from building up and freezing on my fletchings, keeps the brush from knocking an arrow loose and pulling out like one arrow from the quiver. Keeps everything kind of tight and in place. I really like it. It's legit. So that's the bow sling. Arrows wise, I went ahead and put fire nocks on my arrows for this trip. They're legal in BC, totally legal. And I'm sick and tired of not being able to see where this micro diameter arrow goes. These are a tiny set of fletchings. They disappear. I shoot 70 yards and it's like, where did the arrow go? So I like having this lighted nock. It's a game changer. The lighted nock comes on when you fire the arrow, and then to turn it off, I mean, it's as simple as just I'll show you. Hitting the surface like that, and then the night light goes off. I got to close range on a moose. Moose smelled us, got up, was getting out of there. I dialed moose. I had to guess the yardage and estimate the yardage, hold a little high, took my shot, and then I shot under the moose. And it was really easy. First time in a while where I had no doubt that I missed the moose. The lighted knock just went right under the brisket, and I knew that I did not hit him. And that was nice because we didn't spend a lot of time trying to find it. And I could not see the arrow itself. I just saw the light. And so, very, very handy tool to have. So that's the bow, sling, arrows. I've already talked about Valkyrie. Freaking amazing. The way those arrows penetrate and how they're shooting. I think I covered everything. If you've got any questions, put them on the YouTube. I encourage people to watch this rather than listen to it. If you've got any questions, put them in the YouTube comments. I'll try to answer those. You can leave some on Instagram. You can send them an email, but I'm not very good about getting to my email. I'm really backlogged. Not the best way to get a hold of Brian Call. Got a one-man show here, so it's easier if you leave a comment or a message on Instagram or on YouTube. Try to respond on both those platforms. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that answered some questions. I didn't bring a spotter on this trip because I knew it was going to be really dense and close range country. We weren't glassing long distances. And I knew that the different guides and outfitters there were going to have their own spotters. So I brought the 15s and mounted those to a tripod. My favorite tripod right now is the Leupold. And that's not because I'm partners with Leupold, not because Leupold's awesome. It's just the tripod is legit. It's a carbon fiber tripod. It's super lightweight. It's lighter than my Gitzo, which I paid $1,000 for. And it's about the same size. In fact, it's a little taller, which is nice. And then I have a Manfrotto head that I've been using for a long time, smooth pan head. But the head that comes with the Leupold, I like even better. And it's also a fluid head. So I think it's like $400 or something, somewhere in that price range. I've used the Outdoorsman. I definitely like the Leupold better. So about similar weights, for the equivalent size tripod. I would check that out if you're interested. I've been putting it through its paces and I'm impressed. I like that tripod. I don't have one in here. I'd show it to you. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to sign off. I hope that this was useful and you have good luck on all your future hunts coming up. Good luck this late season, everybody. And as always, stay gritty. Despite our ever-changing, ever-indignant world with its growing ignorance of and indifference to the ways of the wild, I remain a predator, pitying those who revel in artificiality and synthetic success while regarding me and my kind as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood. I stalk a real world of dark wood and tall grass stirred by a restless wind blowing across sunlit water and beneath star-strewn sky. And on those occasions when I choose to kill, to claim some small part of nature's bounty for my own, I do so by choice, quickly, with the learned efficiency of a skilled hunter. Further, in my heart and mind, I know the truth and make no apologies for my actions or my place in time. Others around me may opt to eat only plants, nuts, and fruits. Still others may employ faceless strangers to procure their meats, their leather, their feathers, and all those niceties and necessities of life. Such is their right, of course, and I wish them well. All I ask in return is no one begrudge me, and all of us who may answer the primordial stirrings within our hunter souls, my right to do some of these things myself. What you just heard is a quote from M.R. James. We truly live in a world that is largely ignorant and indifferent to the ways of the wild. And although some regard us as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood, we have the opportunity to change the way these people view the hunter and the hunt. We can share our experiences and nature's bounty with those who employ these faceless strangers. And by so doing, we make a difference, not just for ourselves, but for the wild animals in the wild places we care so deeply about. Never stop sharing your passion for hunting and the outdoors. Our wild animals and our wild places depend on it.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to The Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.